you all for being here. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. And what is always a very busy month in December. Thanks for coming to an earlier meeting so that everyone can enjoy the holidays going into next week. I wish everyone a very happy holidays, whatever you celebrate and all that you celebrate. I know that there's some good news Patrick will be talking about later with students and stuff. But I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Lorna. This is her last meeting, and it's been fantastic working with you. And you will be missed, but I know you got a lot going on, and we appreciate everything you've done. And I know we'll continue to do when you have time. You'll still give me a call. We'll still be meeting. So it's just been a real joy to work with you, and I appreciate that. So without further ado, we'll just go on to minutes. Any questions on the minutes? If not, can I have a motion?
I motion to approve them as written.
Okay. And a second? Okay, second from Jen. All in favor? Okay, we're passed. And any adjustments to the agenda, Patrick, or are we good?
No adjustments, and I'll just take a second to thank Lorna. Lorna has been on the board not that long, maybe compared to some of our other members, but I remember on finance committee when I don't even think she had students in the district at that time, that she was just a citizen that came in, and I was like, why do you want to come to finance committee? But very conscientious, very thorough. Also, when we had a bond to fix up some of our facilities in the district, she was a volunteer that came out and got the word out and talked about the positives that we would get from that bond. So thank you very much, and you'll be missed. We have a little gift for you tonight, so no adjustments.
Thank you. Can I say something quick?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
This will be the last time I can say anything, so you may as well listen. I just wanted to commend you guys. I never imagined what we would go through the last 3 years. And Anita, the meeting that one of the many mask debates, the meeting where you were the sole person who voted no masking, I walked away from that meeting feeling so proud that we could handle such a difficult topic. Not to single you out, but it was like the meeting where we don't always have to agree, and we respected your decision and you respected ours. And then Jennifer, same thing. I know you've been in that situation. And other districts have been circuses through this. So thank you so much. I don't know how we did it, but thank you. It's been an honor, really. Thanks.
Thank you, Lorna. So that's great. So we're on to public session. If there's anyone here from the public who wants to speak, I think we're all just okay. And then we'll move on to staff report, and it's the Book Buddies presentation. Patrick, do you want to introduce?
Yeah. So thank you for being here. And so I asked a couple weeks ago or a month ago, some interesting presentations that we could have. And so I first would like to thank Adele Carter for being here, and also Leslie Gland is back after. She's not going to make you do any phonics this year, but she's back. And so and also Randy Hickson is here, and Monica Wright, I assume, for moral support, but maybe they have a speaking role. So, and then for 8th graders, I hope I get this right, but we have 4 students, I think 3 students joining us: Gracious Emery, Maisie Maines, and Justice Bean, or Seguin 8th graders that are going to come and talk about their experience of working with our kindergarten students at Dyke Newell. So it's all yours. Come on up. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Hello, thank you. My entourage is going to pass out some books for you. These were the 8th grade products that were given to the Dyke Newell kindergarten students. Each student received a personalized book where they were a character in the book with their own name and a lesson for them. To give you context to this, this was part of an expedition that my team and I did. We're inspired by EL at Bath Middle School. And one of the things that we really wanted to stress with our students was community involvement. And so this was one of the opportunities they had to be involved in the community. We also had a zombie run where and some of you participated in that. We raised $450 for the Bath Area Food Bank. We had Kimberly Gates come in and speak to our students about the importance of food security and donating. We also facilitated a escape room in our basement, which had some fun moments and some surprising moments, but it was all good. And students, they demonstrated math skills. They had math riddles, and also we had a fog machine and some lasers, and they learned about reflecting and absorbing light. Our 8th graders facilitated the whole thing. They had leadership roles, and it was amazing. And then came ELA. And I reached out to Leslie in kindergarten and asked her if she would be willing to participate with us. We visited twice. The first time we went was really exciting. The 8th graders didn't know what to expect. Some of them don't have little people in their lives, so they really didn't know what to expect. But we were very well prepared. We chose children's books that they chose themselves that they wanted to read. To prepare before that, this revolved around archetypes in ELA. It was one of our units that we had decided that we would implement this year. And so it just happened to work out that I could implement this. And we talked about archetypical characters and settings and situations. We talked about the hero's journey and quests. So some of the stories you might notice have heroes and villains. We read a short story called The Most Dangerous Game that had a really sinister villain. We talked about the appropriateness of villains and heroes, of course, with kindergartners. That was one of the things that we spent a lot of time on was, focusing on our audience. And our audience was 5-year-olds. And so we really wanted to be sensitive to that. We wanted to be engaging and exciting, and we wanted to promote reading. And so the 8th graders, before we went, of course, we did this study in ELA with our standards. And then we developed a lesson plan that was before, during, and after reading, basically, the book. There's some floating around where they had to, before they read, they had to come up with engaging questions around themes in the book. During reading, I had them flag pages and come up with questions based on making connections and making inferences, getting their book buddy engaged in the book, making it fun, not school, but engaging. And then after reading, just, again, looking at the bigger theme in the story. So we went in October, we walked over. It was very exciting for us. We sat down. Thanks to Leslie, it was very organized. That was one thing, a takeaway was that we really needed to communicate. There was a few tricky things where there were some kindergartners that were absent that day, some 8th graders that were absent. So we really had to communicate, how we were going to make sure that every single kindergartner created a book and every single 8th grader created a book. And it worked out really well. Yes. Some of my 8th graders, they stepped up and they wrote stories for kids that they didn't sit with. I had one student who changed her story so that she could incorporate 2 students that were absent. They were truly amazing. So it took about it was about 4 weeks to create high quality work. But we came back and we went through the writing process. I had them start from the beginning, thinking about themes that would be relevant to a kindergartner. You know, what kind of lesson do they need? We also interviewed them to get some biographical information so that we could incorporate it into the story and make it more personalized, make it theirs. And also to get input about what kind of story they wanted. Did they want to be a hero? Did they want their pet to be their sidekick? Those types of things that make it fun. So we went through the writing process. We plotted it out. We wrote, we revised, we edited. A lot of it was collaborative work with the 8th graders themselves. We had sessions where we sat down and shared parts of our story with one another to get feedback. We all jumped right in there and did our best to make sure that we had high quality work. I really want to praise my team as well for that, because it really took a team. I could not do that by myself. It required some what we call walls down time, where I was basically like, I need help. And Randy Hickson, the math teacher, he gave time in math class for a couple of classes where they could just sit and just get it done, because they need that extended time. And also, they created their own illustrations for these stories as well. And so that was a big part of it. Justice and Gracious, they drew out their illustrations. Some kids, they used technology. It was really interesting to see them share ideas. I learned about AI and this new platform where you can text or describe what you want and it creates it for you. It was really amazing. We used Canva, we used Book Builder. We all learned a lot about the technological side of it as well. And then we went to Dyke Newell, and even our tallest kids that, may be those kids that struggle in class, they shined. And every single student, kindergartner, received a personalized book, and every single 8th grader developed a book to give to a kindergartner. It was really amazing. Let me just see if I missed anything. I think the big part of this activity and what made it so awesome was that the 8th graders had an authentic audience. They had somebody who was going to read their book, and that really increased the quality of their work. And then just the fact that it was very purposeful. They wrote for an audience. They had a very direct message for their book buddies, a lesson at the end. It was very purposeful.
I got to say that audience was super. You used these words too. They were engaged. It was super fun. And it's going to be remembered for a very long time from both the 8th grader perspective, I think, and the kindergartner's perspective. The experience, I hope we can keep collaborating on other things too back there, you guys too, because it was very, very meaningful. This collaboration, they also covered some learning standards and literacy learning standards for the kindergartners. The kindergartners identified a key idea from a text, and it was so simple of them. You have some of the papers when I asked them to do their favorite part. They knew immediately what their favorite part was. They could turn right to their favorite part page. It was incredible and so powerful because it's their book, it's them, it's their name. They could identify characters in their story. It was them, it was their dog, it was their brother. It was amazing. They're friends. I read all their stories. Thank you, Mr. Hickson, for that idea. I kept all their books last week and I used them as read alouds for the entire week. So their faces and their looks and their little titters and stuff, when they heard their friends' names or their own names and their superhero strengths or their powers that they got, it was so engaging, very powerful. Characters were identified all over the place. And also a couple of listening and speaking standards. When the kindergarten students, they needed to listen and respond to the eighth graders. Their eighth graders were asking them questions. Sometimes kindergartners will just look at you. Just look at you. You're not getting anything back from them. You're just looking. Did you guys encounter any of that? Well, yeah, they just look at you. You're like, what are you doing? And then you keep asking them and they'll respond back. And that's a good practice to be able to talk and have a conversation back and forth. And that's part of our listening and speaking standards in kindergarten. Continuing conversation through multiple exchanges. They did that with the eighth graders, their questionnaire. And the details woven into the stories, I'm so happy I kept them for the week to read them aloud to everyone. The details woven in, the people would be like, that's my fish. That's my dog. You know, it was still, they'd heard it and it was still so surprising and awesome for them. So it was very meaningful, really fun. They brought them home on Friday for their families, you know, to share and to keep forever. It was very positive, and I just hope we can keep doing this through the years and maybe even this year still. You guys are pretty cool. Thank you.
So Justice, Maisie, and Gracious prepared a statement for you.
How do you think this trip impacted your kindergarten buddy? Well, I have thought about this question for a while, and I've come up with an answer. Throughout this project, I was tasked with writing and illustrating a children's book for the kindergarten we met with and read to. I met with Michonne. She wanted her book to be about, her as a princess with a purple dress, crystal shoes, and a wand that shoots bubbles and rainbows. Having to write this story was stressful at times, but we got through it. Michonne was very quiet, and when I first met with her, she barely even spoke. So I had to envision what she would want in her book, which was pretty hard. I eventually came up with the idea, Princess Michonne in the Royal Library. During the meeting, she said she liked reading and wanted her friend Henry to be in it too. So I made Michonne a super princess that would have a wand that could shoot bubbles to lift up the culprits of any crime to be able to talk to them. After I'd finished writing the book, it was time to move on to the illustrations. I'd put together 5 illustrations that would follow the plot of the book. When I arrived at Dyke Newell, me and Michonne sat down and I told her all about the story, which she seemed excited for. As I'm reading, she was looking at the pictures, which I could tell she enjoyed. By the time I was done reading, she asked me if I could read again, which I did. And then once more after I told her I had to go. As we were leaving, I saw her racing over to her friends, showing them her story, which made me feel so happy. I hope she continues reading the story even after we left.
Last week, Mrs. Carter posed the question, what was the most meaningful aspect of this project to you? Though the process was very stressful at times, imagining how happy this would make the girls, Jade and Aiko, that I was working with, made it 100% worth it. I think that this project was extra meaningful to me because I know how much of an impact this type of experience can make on little ones' lives. I wanted to create a high-quality story that these girls would remember forever, and during this process, Mrs. Carter brought up the fact that these books were going to be held onto and cherished by the kids. This drove me to create a storyline that would truly light these girls up, and I wish I could have captured their faces when I pulled out 2 copies of a book that had the title Top Secret. And not to mention the joy that it brought them, the joy that it brought me to see them show off the shiny yellow covers to their friends, but to quickly hide them, for it was top secret and it was only to be shared with who they choose. So the answer to this question is, I think the most meaningful aspect of this project was for me to know the delight that this brought them and their friends to read these books.
I just really want to say how this project was really meaningful to me because when I was in kindergarten and even now, I've always wanted to write a book and to illustrate something as meaningful as that. And to be able to do this for a kindergartner was like a really full circle moment, and it meant a lot to me. And I really want to thank Miss Carter for giving me and all of my fellow students this opportunity. And I think that we really made an impact on these kindergartners' lives and really showed them that reading can be fun and that you can do cool things like this if you stay with it and stick with school. And yeah.
Did you guys have any questions?
Any questions? And just to let people know, we do have Jamie Dorr, our other board member. She's online. So if she wants to chime in, but Jennifer, go ahead.
I have a question for the 8th grade students. Were you surprised at all when you sat down next to the kids in terms of the furniture that was in the room? Or were you sitting on the floor?
Well, actually, we walked into the room and we kind of, for my group, we all stood up in front of the room and Mrs. Carter read off the list of who we were going to be with. And then once we met our book buddy, introduced ourselves, we let them decide where they wanted to sit. So some of us sat at their desk, some of us sat over in their favorite reading corner, like a little chair. So yeah, but I mean, the chairs were so tiny and some of us were so big.
And I guess the other question is would you do it again if it was something besides reading, or what, would you go back to the classroom to be with the kids again?
Definitely, yeah.
I'm really amazed at the thoughtfulness and all of the connections, that it wasn't just a process of being with the kids. It met so many standards. And I have been in these buddy programs before, and I had, maybe these standards were all being thought about and reported on and met. I don't know, but they certainly weren't as organized as this. So it's really wonderful that you got to have the experience, plus you had that opportunity to grow in your objectives and things like that. So it was sounds like it was a very well organized process. I just want to say that, these great moments between 8th graders and kindergartners are the wonderful things when we have K-8 or K-5 schools. You get to have this great opportunity. And I'm really glad you guys got to do it. I hope you do it again. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Lou, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to mention, just one of the students was just talking about the delight that the young people had when they went into the classroom. And I would just say that that was a perfect word to describe listening to this presentation. I'm smiling here from ear to ear, and just how much delight this project brought into the district. So I just wanted to say well done to Mrs. Carter and to the 8th grade students and the kindergartners.
Thanks, Jamie. Go ahead, Lorna.
I just wanted to say to all of you that every day I'm amazed at the resiliency and how you guys have just adapted after being so disrupted for so long. So really well done. I mean, you have every reason to just want to do something for yourself right now, but to share it with other people, especially your younger, cohorts in school, just well done, really.
Great. Do you have a comment?
And just thank you. As you know, Dyke Newell's been through a difficult time, and granted, there's a kindergarten students, but they're in a new facility. And thank you for giving them something to look forward to, and also for helping our teachers as well at Dyke Newell. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's not easy to speak in front of an audience, but you did a great job. So thank you.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job. That's what I wanted to say, was all three of you just phenomenal speakers. You should keep doing that and keep writing. Don't stop. And it's just a fantastic, these books are incredible. Just what a great creative. And I love that you do the whole hero's journey and you're introducing them to all that now. It's only going to help them later. Great stuff. And thank you to the teachers. Thank you all. This is just fantastic. Thank you. There you go. Future drama kids for Morse. That's good. Yeah, let's just, yeah, because I didn't have a lot planned for it other than, but I'll start. You can, if you want. There you go. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. They really are.
Thank you.
Sorry, Deb, you have to stay here. I know she was trying to sneak out with everybody else. Thank you again, everyone. Appreciate it. Okay, we have Finance Committee. Whoops, I had my notes. Where are they? Maybe you ought to start. I had them, but I don't know where they are.
Yeah, I mean, just to let people know that the Finance Committee met, we have our minutes up on our website under that. But just to give an overview, Hank came in, who's I guess you call it financial consultant now. And I sent those to the board, and they'll be on our website if they're not already. And so we will have an auditing company come in addition to Hank because he's changed his role. But you have those presentations. Deb gave an overview of ARP, ESSER 3 funds and what we spent out of and what's closed, and then what we have to spend out of that last ARP one. And we passed out a tentative finance schedule, budget committee from now until May or June. And then the last thing we talked about was just, which we'll have to bring before the whole board, we're just not quite ready to do so yet, is just a solar project that the board voted on to approve with revision last year, I think it was, about a year ago, that one of the site that we were supposed to be at has been delayed, and they want to know whether we would be okay with going to a different site, almost in the same Central Maine area, but our rebate would be, instead of being 17.5%, it would be 15% if we went in on that. And so I have some breakdowns and some numbers that I'll share with the whole board, and eventually we'll have to have that discussion and make a decision on that. But I think that was the crux of the meeting. Lorna and Lou, you guys weigh in.
Anything else? Well, no, just on the finance committee. Is there anything else?
Well, we had a community member come and discuss and be interested in ARP. And I think he'll be back. So I think that'll
be on the, continue to be on the front of our minds, or the finance committee's minds, in the future when all of the grant money is gone. So it was good though to have a community member there.
Great. All right. Any questions on the finance committee?
Am I able to get a printed copy of the presentation that Patrick emailed?
Yeah, I can. Jamie, I can either drop it off when I'm at BMS, tomorrow, or we can leave one at the office for you. We can talk.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Natalie, you're up. Student board.
Thank you. It's a short report tonight. Big things. The first sporting events of the, I'm not on. Am I on? Yeah, I am. First sporting events of the year happened. So swimming had their first meet. Indoor track had a meet. I believe a few basketball games were played. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but SCLC and NHS raised about $900 for Adopt a Family over the last 2 weeks, and most of the shopping has been done. I believe we're wrapping this week, and we'll distribute the gifts next week. And I think a lot of people are very ready for the holidays to happen.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Lorna has a question. Go ahead.
Hi, Natalie. I wasn't here the last meeting, I'm sorry, but in the minutes, and I did read them, I know that you and Caroline I was happy to see her working more closely with schools and working with the student councils and all of that. Is there, do you have any plans, other than for reaching students who may not be on student council? Are there reaching student body that, like a broader representation of the student?
Which it's a very different portion of the student body than I normally interact with, and Caroline as well. In terms of other schools in the district, I'm not sure yet. We're still finishing that up. I emailed Mr. Libby today to reach back out about the student council because I hadn't heard anything in a while. And Caroline and I know I'm hoping to sit in a student council meeting at Woolwich, and Caroline's going to sit in one at Bath, and hopefully we can talk about greater student representation within those meetings. And there's definitely more that we could be doing in Morse, but I'm not sure what that is yet.
Thanks. I know you're just getting started, and it's great. And I also noticed that you or Caroline mentioned student access to policies, which I think is a fantastic idea, because that's what we're supposed to be all about. So thank you very much. And congratulations, by the way.
Okay. Patrick, you're up.
So I guess on that segue,
Yeah.
and I'll read these next two fairly slowly so you can just kind of sink in both of these. But first off, congratulations to Natalie here tonight. I know you guys all know this.
Congratulations.
But being selected as one of two Maine students to be a delegate for the U.S. Senate Youth Program, which will be, I think, a week-long experience this March. This prestigious recognition required a competitive application process, and she was judged on her academics, her leadership, and community involvement. And Natalie is only the second Morse student in the program's history to receive this honor. The first was Lon Povich, class of 77 that Deb knows. And there are now only 28 Maine high schools with 2 or more U.S. Senate Youth Program representatives. So congratulations. Well deserved.
Yay. That is awesome.
Another student just to mention, I think is pretty neat to see, is Oscar Hennon, who was a 2021 Morse graduate, is currently studying engineering at UMass Amherst. And he spent the last 2 years developing an automated sander called Sandtronics. And the device attaches to a wooden beam, automatically moving along the surface to sand it evenly. And while sanding timber frames by hand can take up to 100 hours, Oscar said the Sandtronics can get the job done in less than 60 hours without muscle fatigue. So after entering a series of entrepreneurial competitions, he won $17,000 in seed money to help fund the future of Sandtronics. So I don't know if you saw the article in the newspaper, but congratulations to Oscar, not only a full-time student in engineering, but also an entrepreneur on the side. So congratulations. And then just a couple of things, it was mentioned here already tonight, but several examples of our schools and our students giving back at this time of year. And that's just great to see. It's great for students to learn the benefits of that and how far that goes, especially, starting at a young age. And parent conferences were well attended, in person, but also some remote that parents still found to be convenient. And I think that's it.
That's fantastic. Any questions or comments for Patrick? Okay, Deb?
Good evening, everybody. I missed last meeting as well, so this is kind of a update for the end of November. We're in the 5th month. I have had the opportunity to do some closer analysis. It seems like, phew, finally, we'll be able to really look at some of these numbers. So Patrick mentioned last meeting that I did salary and benefits budget versus actual. And we're in line with everything that we had budgeted. We'll be a little short in custodial salary and benefits compared to the contract that we were in last time. But our other positions are enough to cover everything. I was looking at tuition today, budget versus actual, and the rates have not been set yet, but as far as the student numbers, we have a total of, sorry, it's back here. We're up on our students by about 20 students from what we had budgeted. So once the rates are set, then I'll come back and let you know where we're at with that. As far as the end of November, we're at $15.5 million that we've spent, so about 40%. This is the first report that you'll see that has encumbrances on it. So that basically shows you that we have about 17,295,000 remaining in salary and benefits for the rest of the year. 19 more pay periods. And as far as revenue goes, we're at 45%, so about 18 million. I know on the minutes that Jen, you asked about interest, and definitely better than what we've seen for the past, well, 2 years. Fiscal year 21, we had like $8,000 in interest. Last year we had 11. This year we're already at 32. So that's definitely a good sign. Basically, it's just the interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
The budget's all set up in ADS, so all the school secretaries are ready to start entering things, hard to believe. And I'll start on the salary and benefits. ARP grant. So this year we have 3.6 million to start out with. This is the $4 million grant, so we're just starting basically the major spending. And this will last for 2 more years. So, and it's covering, and as you can see on the report, 12 full-time employees and 5 part-time. CTE had received this year 3 grants for a total of $226,000 that Julie can buy equipment and supplies, and she's working on that. And that's about it. I just want to say thank you, Lorna, for your oversight and involvement in the finance world.
Thank you.
So,
It's been a pleasure.
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah, Jen.
Deb, I'm noticing that the gas prices are inching down, but does that help us because are we kind of tied into a certain rate?
It helps us only because with our transportation contract, we pay for gas. So, you know, it kind of hurt us that they went up so much, but then going down definitely will help us.
We don't lock into a rate.
No,
No, okay.
no.
Jamie, you had a question?
Yes, under the ARP listing for the 12 full-time and 5 part-time staff, there's medical assistance and nursing support that are listed there. Will
Yes.
those be, I guess, how does that work with the new school-based health clinic that's coming along?
I will let Katie answer that one.
Sure. We actually had those in the budget before we even knew the school-based health center was going to be something we'd be able to apply for. And the purpose of, there's one floating person who we put in the ARP budget through December 31st. And so she'll actually be done shortly. And that was to help the school nurses, other than Katrina at the high school, get through all of the beginning of year paperwork, just in case there was a big rush of COVID and we weren't sure, and also all their screenings. We have another person who's a full-time medical assistant just at the high school, because with COVID, Katrina was seeing many more students and serving much more as a medical center on her own before the school-based health center, than just because needs were very different than what she was used to before for both students coming from Bath Tech or Lincoln or Morse. And so that person is budgeted through ARP for the whole year. That person also, they're trying to work into, because she's only budgeted for us through ARP for this year, they're trying to work her support into the school-based health center budget through the grant. So we're hoping to get her a contract actually through Lincoln Health as well, where she'll be partially working for us and partially working for them, so she can kind of be the conduit between Morse, Bath Tech, and Lincoln Health, and be able to do all of their reporting, help them with billing, but also still be supporting Katrina for some hours during the week.
Oh,
Does
that's
that
great.
answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
And then my other question for I'm not sure exactly who, but is it possible to get a breakdown of these positions and what schools they're at, just so that we can have a baseline for when we're talking about the overall budget?
Sure, we can include that, Jamie, with your copies of the financials that was passed out at finance.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I know I'm not going to be here, but can I also just make another suggestion? And I think we usually get it when we're actually in the budget process. But at board meetings, when we get the budget report, is it possible or is it worth getting enrollment trends? Just it kind of helps. There's always helped knowing how many students we have at that snapshot. I know it probably doesn't change monthly though, all that much, but I didn't.
No, but we could, there's a report that we run from Infinite Campus that shows enrollment. I mean, we certainly could include that.
It just seems like that would be, and again, you guys can ultimately decide, but that is always helpful for me to see enrollment numbers. It just helps me visualize costs a little bit more.
Sure. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're on to old business. This is second readings of board policies, which include DB, the annual budget, DBG, the budget adoption process, IJJ, instructional and library media materials selection, IJJE, challenge of instructional materials form, JLCB, immunization requirements. Is that all of it? Yeah, and so this was action. We got it last time. A lot of it was minor changes, I believe. Can we take this all together? Is everyone okay with that? All right. Then may I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt these revised policies.
Okay, motion by Lorna, second
I'll
by
second.
Jennifer. And any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Jamie, yeah, thank you. It's unanimous. That passes. And we move forward to new business, 13.0. Katie.
Just a short report tonight. I kind of want to build on what Adele and Leslie shared, that there's just a lot of really great things going on in the district right now in terms of academics, kind of to Lorna's point that we could be exhausted, but it feels like people are really inspired to do some creative things. Just that for some quick examples, I know I shared that the high school, Morse, is doing a bunch of learning cohorts that were teacher choices on topics. And just to name a few, there's one that's actually all about faculty wellness, and they put together activities around mindfulness and other sort of exercise-based things for professional development days and other days. We have one group thinking about the vision of a graduate and really what we want our students to be able to do and be able to conquer once they leave. We have another that is taking it upon themselves to sort of dig even deeper into understanding their autistic students more. And so people are really choosing to be so self-directed and inspiring with their learning. It's exciting. And we have another new round of, remember last time I talked about the Rev Grant classes that our BMS middle school students are involved in. We started our second round, and Brandon wanted me to make sure I shared that in addition to some of the titles of courses they were doing last time, they're also going to be, some of them now, tracing their ancestry, creating brochures with the Chamber of Commerce for different sort of businesses. And some of them will also be taking a course called Nailed It and learning how to do gel nails on their own. Yes. And, on the more academic side of things, we have a really exciting opportunity coming up on August 6th, and I'll share more of the details, but it's from 5 to 7. It'll be here, STEM City. I don't know if anyone remembers our STEM night right before COVID, where BIW, a lot of businesses, teachers, students did presentations, and that's happening again. And Monica Wright and Karen De Silva are the planners and starting to get people involved, but BIW will be participating, and they have a lot of people lined up to come. So it should be really exciting to have that back in action here and actually be able to showcase our new school and a lot of our vocational programs and sort of the technology pieces that are happening there. And finally, I know, we've always kept the board updated on our RTI, response to intervention, and the cycle of making sure we're catching students up from the pandemic continues. Students have had all their assessments in the beginning of the year. We're coming up through, and this is mostly K-8 that runs on this cycle. They're doing their sort of second round of assessments so we can see where they're at. The teachers are participating in something we called collaborations, where they go through all the student data and select students who need intervention. And our new RTI coordinator, Beth, has actually been able to sit on those meetings that are happening in each building to really make sure that they're consistent and no students are falling through the cracks, which is working out really well. And so I think that's really, those are the things I wanted to highlight tonight for all of you to make sure you're aware of. Any questions?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Katie, I know that before the pandemic hit, I don't even know if I was on the board, but I know that every once in a while the board would get a report after New Year's and whatever the state exams are called now, but where we'd get a report per grade on where people stood, students stood, and then of course through the pandemic that wasn't priority, nor should it have been. Is there any plans? I know that having that information publicly, I know there's concerns about it because tests are just one snapshot at a time and all students are different and socioeconomic challenges can be represented there. But is there any plan in the future for the board to get reports, just kind of where we're at per grade level as we try to pull out of the pandemic?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to share with the board anytime. I would say, so at the end of last year, the test is NOEA.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's fall and spring. But I would prefer to share at the end of this year, just because if you really think about it, this is our first regular year in quite some time. And I think, I wouldn't want us to perseverate on something that's very inaccurate because of what was going on. And so I absolutely plan to share sort of where were we this fall and how far did we get by the end of the year? Because to me, that makes the most sense, especially because we're truly doing our interventions in the way they were intended versus the last 2 years, we really weren't. I mean, if you think about, we were doing, we had half a year where students were only at school 2 days a week or whatnot for a while. And so that's the plan. In terms of the state's plan, I actually haven't heard if they're planning to do the report card thing that they used to. I don't know, Patrick, if you've heard that they're making that public. Yeah, so they haven't really shared that with us. The science test is also newer, the one that's at 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. But they're still working on a lot of the kinks. For instance, we still haven't seen our test scores since last spring on the science. So I was supposed to have a science committee earlier in the fall with the hopes to review those and adjust our curriculum and whatnot. And they said, had me move it to January. That was their suggestion because they weren't sure when it was all going to be ready. And so for them, they're catching up too. If we assume the best, everybody's just catching up. Sure.
Jamie, you had a question?
Well, Lorna's question just made me think about there must be a main integrated youth health survey available for RSU1 or at least BMS Morse Woolwich. Is that something that would be shared with the board?
Yeah, we could pull out information and share that. That's ready. We've looked at it in our own schools and principals have, but we haven't shared that publicly yet. But we could definitely look at that, sharing that in the new year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Patrick, personnel items.
Yeah, just a couple of retirements and one resignation. Would like to thank Roberta Sherwood, who is a nurse at Woolwich, and prior to that, she was a nurse at Phippsburg, and thank her for 20 years of service to the district. Another retirement, Mary Ellen Moran, grade 1 teacher at Woolwich, and like to thank her for 22 years of service to the district. And also like to thank Cameron Rennie, who's resigning as guidance counselor at Woolwich, and thank her for 6 years of service.
Next meeting date is the new year, folks, January 23rd, 2023, and 6 o'clock here at Morse. Any other questions about that or anything else before we adjourn for the year? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Lauren, she's got to go out big. All right, a second. And Meg seconds. All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Get some rest, James. Thank you, everybody.